Join us each week as Andrew, Ray, and others bring us in on one of their weekly phone conversations with an amazing agent. This is Little Oak Weekly.
This is Little Oak Weekly, and you are joined with myself, Andrew Bracewell. Thanks for being along for the ride today. Today we have an incredible guest, Mark Sagar, realtor with us since roughly 2009 in our Surrey location. Sits down, we chat for quite a long time. We get into his past, what drives him, his mindset, motivation, all kinds of cool things. Mark shares with us his history in the culinary and hospitality industry and how that is a major driving force in his mindset today. So lots of great content here. Hope you enjoy Mark as much as I love talking to him. Here we are, Mark Sagar.
Hello.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad at all.
We are live and recording.
Okay.
Thanks for doing this.
Hey, no problem at all. I appreciate you even being interested.
Well, let's wait and see how you do, and then we'll determine how interesting you are.
Exactly.
Hey, tell me what you made for dinner last night. You're spiking it. I need to check your levels. Just start talking to me about food or something you're passionate about.
Geez. I mean, last night actually was pretty simple. I just made a prawn pesto pasta with some homemade pesto. So
Okay, the fact
nice
that you
basic and simple.
You think that's basic and simple, that's amazing. There'll be some people eye rolling as they're listening to this. You made your own pesto? Do you use one of those what's that, pestle and mortar bowls or whatever it's called when you grind your stuff up?
Yeah, if I'm going to make a small batch, I do have a pestle and mortar. I mean, you know what? It's a really useful tool when you're getting into making flavors, you know, whether it's using spices, different, even actually, I've got a little dish that has salt and cracked pepper all grounded up from the pestle and mortar, and then I just throw it into a dish. And
then you just kind of keep it there.
Yeah, it's just one of my staples there. And when it's being done fresh, it just has a little bit more bang to it, right?
Well, that sounds delicious. And did you saute the prawns separately, or did you slow cook them in the sauce, or how do they cook? They don't need much.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with prawns, right? You want to be careful with that. So I'll usually season them, saute them first about 3/4, get a little bit of a char. You need a hot pan for that. Quickly get them out, and then set them aside, and then make your pesto. Usually I put peas into mine to get some extra vegetables and that, and then I throw the pesto in and a little bit of cream, and before that, usually I'll reduce a little bit of wine in there first, just to pick it up, and then get that going, and then I'll throw the prawns in, and then throw the pasta in. Cooking is really quite simple once you understand some of the basics.
And you understand some of the basics because you've got a bit of a culinary past.
Yeah, you know what, I went when I graduated from school, I ended up leaving to head back to England, and I only say back because my whole family's from there, and we lived there when I was really small. My parents took us back for a while.
So born in Canada, moved back there. That's right.
Yeah, born in Canada. My parents emigrated out here. My dad came in '56. I think my mom arrived in '59. So they did decide at one point that they kind of maybe were a little homesick, took us back. I was 2, and I was there till I was about 4.5, 5. And they just realized that, you know what, life was different there. It wasn't the same as they remembered. You have to remember at that time, it's actually still, they're still recovering from the war at that time, believe it or not.
How old are you?
I'm sure. Me?
Yeah.
I'm 53 now.
So is this like, are we talking like mid to late 70s, or when would this have been?
Yeah, for me, I would have been early 70s.
Early 70s, okay.
Yeah. Like I remember taking a train through London, and this is actually when we returned for a vacation. And as a kid, I didn't understand. I looked at my mom and I said, "What's going on over there?" Like literally, you went down the rail line, and off to this one side, there's just this burned out, gutted. It looks like there was this horrible fire.
Wow.
And an area that it was all like you see in documentaries and things. So parts of London like were still being rebuilt, and that would have been one of my visits back in the late 70s. So
like 30 to 40 years later.
Yeah, and I mean, England just wasn't what they remembered, I guess, as kids. So they marched us back, and we stayed out here ever since then.
And
So,
when,
and
how much
then
time did
I
your parents,
graduated.
sorry, how much time did your parents spend in England before they had you? Were they were there like their entire lives?
Yeah, my dad would have left the UK. I guess he would have been about 20. He was actually pretty young. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, he probably left when he was 26.
Like, did they leave mid-war, post-war? Where, like, what was their
No, no, no,
context
no.
with the war?
Post war.
Post-war. Okay. Okay.
My dad had to do his time in the army because at that time they still had conscription, so you had to go and
Absolutely.
do
Yeah.
your service for a couple of years,
Yeah.
and then he left, came back. His family business, actually, he was a butcher by trade, and Sagar's owned quite a well-known butcher shop in Sheffield, which is in the north of England.
Hmm.
And he had very strong differences with his dad, and I guess there was an old way to do butchering, and it was basically all your cuts of meat were all in the back. Someone would walk in and say, "Hey, I need this, this, and this, and this." They'd go in, get it all ready. And my dad had seen new ways. He was younger. He wanted to change the company, and I remember him telling me, like we needed to display the meats, we needed to draw people in.
Interesting.
And it came down to marketing, really. I mean, how you see a butcher shop today.
Oh
Hey,
yeah, the
show
meat's all out
everyone
there.
window shopping.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's window shopping. And he just decided, him and his cousin up and left and moved out to Canada. There was, Canada was looking for people. They had incentives to come out. So they took that up. He came out. My mom and him knew each other very well. They'd been dating for about 5 years. And I guess they kept in touch through snail mail. And finally, one letter came to my dad saying that she'd met someone else, and she wanted to be honest, and it was getting serious, and
Yeah.
they were both dating, like they weren't together. And he got on a plane, went back and proposed, and next thing you know, Mom had come out.
Atta
So
boy.
yeah, so
Wow.
you know, some people think it's pretty romantic. Like it probably was, you know, and
Maybe that's equivalent today to sending a heroic email or poke through some kind of online online
I
connection.
know. Yeah, hopefully, it's
You
something
go get
stronger
what's
than that these
yours.
days. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it wasn't that easy to fly back then.
No.
A flight was a hell of a lot longer than it is today.
So where did mom and dad settle? Did they settle in BC? Like, is that
Yeah, my dad went to Alberta first, and he was in Kamloops of all places at the time when my mom came out. So she really didn't know where she was going. He said, "Oh, it's so beautiful in this country, blah blah blah,"
mm-hmm.
and she arrived, and I always remember the only part of the story I really remember is she arrived and she couldn't understand how she had to go through a separate entrance to go into a pub or a saloon, a bar. And
You got to fill.
and
What do you mean by that? I don't get that.
oh, okay. Well, I mean, the at that time,
Like, we're in
men
Kamloops
went
now.
in. Yeah, we're in Kamloops. Men, and it was in BC. There were bars. I grew up on the North Shore, and there were a couple of hotels that still had the men's entrance, and it didn't say ladies' entrance. It said escorts entrance.
Oh,
And my
that's
mom,
incredible.
I know, and my mom said to him, "There is no way I'm going to live in a place where I have to go through a separate entrance."
Wow.
And so they did get in. I mean, at that time, I guess that was starting to disappear. So he promised her they would be leaving Kamloops, and they ended up in Vancouver and bought themselves a home in the North Shore, up in an area by Edgemont Village, and price that they scraped everything together they possibly could. And my dad always believed in buying something right. If you're going to spend big money, it needed to be good quality, whichever. And I mean, literally at that time, good quality was in a new neighborhood, and they paid $16,000 for a just shy of 1,500 square foot bungalow on what probably pretty sure that lot is about
That's probably a quarter
nearly
acre.
9,000.
Yeah, 10,000
Not
feet.
quite
Yeah,
that, but
yeah,
about shy of 10,000 square feet.
yeah, yeah.
And that house still sits there, actually, on a street where most have been knocked down. It's kind of nice to go past there every once in a while and see it.
So they take you back to England for a few years. They don't. That's
Yeah.
not the right fit. You come back. You grow up in
Grew up in the North
North Shore.
Yep, stayed there and then graduated. And they set it up with some friends of our family that owned a hotel in the south of England. And I worked in a little manor hotel called Moonfleet Manor in Weymouth, which is in Dorset. And I mean, for most people, that would be nothing. But you could, I think I was telling you the other day, it basically was faulty towers.
Hmm.
The owners liked me. I was just going over there to work for the summer and do some hub and spoke travel into Europe, and I ended up staying for 2.5 years working in the hotel. And I was going to go to what they call a polytechnic there, which would be equivalent of like our BCIT,
Mm-hmm.
those type schools, and study hospitality management and culinary foods. And last minute, when I was getting ready to go, all of a sudden it had been discovered I hadn't been back in the country for 5 years. So I was subject to foreign fees, and it was just going to cost a monster amount of money. And I wasn't willing to take another 2.5 years to wait. So off I went back home, and I ended up going to BCIT. My dad did some groundwork. He went and met with Dennis Forrestal, who was the general manager of the Bayshore at the time, and said, where does he want to go? Where should he go? And
Right.
BCIT had the best hospitality management course, and that got my interest in foods. Actually, I always liked kind of cooking a little bit, but didn't realize it until I had that componentry of our course. So then I got out of that, and I decided that's what I was going to do. I was determined I was going to be a chef.
And this is why you know how to make a simple prawn pesto.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, some of my stuff it's so long ago now. I don't remember everything, but basics are there, and that's what cooking is on foundations. And from the foundations, you can build up from there, and you can pretty much do anything. You can start something off with, there's your basic sauces, and then go from there, and you learn how to cook things properly.
Hey, Little Oak, have you thought about business planning? Does your business plan suck? Maybe you've never done one, or maybe your business plan's pretty good, but you need a refresh. No problem, we got you covered. The month of November is business planning month at Little Oak for 2022. Ray's already done session 1. I got session 2 and 3 coming up on the 17th and the 24th of this month. If you're interested and you want to be a part, check it out. Get on our wants and haves. There's some videos and some links up for you to be a part of it, in person or digitally. It's going to be awesome. Take that step. Start planning today. Make 22 the best year ever. So give me an example of a foundation. What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Well, everything starts with something simple. So, it's a technique. It's a sauce, if you wish. Like, if you're going to make a béarnaise sauce, that's what you would start with, and then you would decide what your protein and what your starch and those type of things, and what your seasoning is going to be. So, all those things had basic. Cooking certainly has gone way further. I think if you get into Indian cooking, curries and things, I mean, they have their foundations of certain spice combinations,
right?
And then that creates that curry. So that's your foundation in your base. So you start from something from there and then move up from there.
So do you have a particular flavor of the world or cuisine that you enjoy the most, or enjoy preparing or eating the most?
I always early on, I admired Italian cooking because Italian cooking was very simple, fewer ingredients. So it kind of allows those ingredients to speak, while sometimes other cooking is a combination of all sorts of things. And I call it kind of layers. So you've got layers of flavor and it all blends together. I mean, Italian cooking does do that a little bit, but they're a little bit more simplistic in their approach to things. And a lot of the the dishes we eat today, actually, I mean, would be considered what they would have called, peasant food, even in the UK. I mean,
Sure.
a really good Yorkshire pudding, the only reason they put that in, most people don't know that was cooked usually in a big pie plate, not in an individual one.
Right.
And you serve that to everyone early on because you wanted to fill everyone up, because at that time you couldn't afford meat. So if I filled up on the Yorkshire pudding, I didn't need as much meat.
Huh.
When you read about food, it's quite interesting where some stuff comes from. But I have a real intrigue. I mean, I don't think I have anywhere specifically I absolutely like, but I enjoy Asian cooking, and I am starting to try to understand some of the Indian cooking, and I'd like to perfect that. I bug Bawa every once in a while, so maybe one time he'll invite me over and show me some stuff, or his mom.
I've heard of these legendary Indian goat roasts where like the goat goes on in the pot. It's a curry that probably simmers, slow cooks for hours on end, and
Yeah.
guys sit around, sipping something while the goat's cooking. And I love goat curry. It's actually probably my favorite of all Indian proteins. I would choose goat like in their curry over anything else.
Yeah, it's not common to us here, but goat is really, really tasty.
It's
It's
really good.
Yeah, like, I mean, I love lamb, but lamb is too gamey for some people, but goat has some similarities, but really, really tasteful. And my wife's Portuguese, and I've learned they use a lot of goat as well. So that's another area that I'm kind of like learning a bit now, is Portugal. I'd never thought of Portugal before in cooking so much, but
And they use a lot of goat in Portuguese cooking?
yep.
Okay.
Chicken's their big one. Chicken is their big one.
Sure.
But goat is quite prominent there as well.
Let's talk. So you get into the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
And this has had a significant impact, I think, on who you are and how you approach real estate.
Yeah.
I don't want to buy. I think there's a lot of meat there, no pun intended. I don't want to skip over too much. You told me I got a little snippet of a Hawksworth story that I want you to repeat. So you're in. This is like, are you like early to mid 20s at this time, or what?
Yeah, I would have been in my mid 20s, and this is where I decided after doing hospitality admin and management that you could go into front of house, you could go into back of house of food, and I just sort of thought, I love this cooking. I'm good at this. It's a little ego driven, I think, sometimes. Anyway, so I got my apprenticeship at that time, and I signed up to be in. With an apprenticeship, you go to school for a while, and then you practice. You go and work for a month or two, then you go back to school. So, in part of my going to work, I'm in William Tell Restaurant, and our owner sits in front of me and he's explaining to us, because I was kind of like, talking to my buddy, and I'm like, I'm tired of being over in the bar area, because the William Tell at that time was in a hotel, the Georgian Court, and we had Rigny's, which was the bar as well. And
you're not in the fine dining section of the restaurant.
Yeah, I wasn't in the fine dining. I did a lot of the prep, and then I get shipped over and go, okay, you're in there tonight.
They kick out the trash before the fine diners show up.
Yeah, I mean, there's hierarchy in kitchens.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't quite say it's always like Gordon Ramsay, but there's a few like that for sure.
Sure.
And it's kind of earn your stripes. And I always remember being told, our owner sat there and I was like, come on, like, when are we going to get into this? He goes, look, Mark, if you can't perfect making the best chicken strip or the best burger, the best French fry, you're not ready for my restaurant. And make a long story short, I sat there and went, well, you know what? I am good enough for your restaurant. So kind of screw this. And I was like, but, I don't need to do this. Other guy beside me kind of went, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Okay. That's what I'm going to do. Well, I left the restaurant business and went into front of house, and the other guy stayed in it. he perfected it, and his name's David Hawksworth.
Oh, I love that. Mic drop.
It comes down to, I think, like anything, and my lesson there was later to go, you need the basics. If you do the basics well, you can build from there.
And David is like is he the name in the Vancouver food scene still? I mean, I know he's one of them.
He's one of them. He's one of the big guys. Yeah. And I mean, he's highly respected.
Do you enjoy eating at Hawksworth? Like, do you think that's a great spot? I'm asking because I'm always disappointed by it, but I'm sure I'm not saying he's not good.
I have to say, I've not been in his restaurant that's at the Hotel Georgia.
Oh, okay.
I haven't gone in there. He used to, it was head chef for West. I had been in there.
Yes.
And, I enjoy West. But I haven't been into his. It's an art. It's an art form. So some people are going to like your art and some people aren't.
Well, and part of the reason I make that comment is because, you judge everything based on what you're paying to a degree, right? And so if you're paying $69 for a dish versus $39 for a dish, you might have a little bit different expectation. And Hawksworth is not a inexpensive experience.
No, not at all. I mean, but that's the key word. You're paying for an experience.
Yeah.
And you know what? At the end of the day, I might do that once in a blue moon. I'm not. I like fine dining. I like really good food, but you can find really good food at all levels.
This is a loaded question, but this vast experience you have in hospitality, I mean, you also spent some time you spent a lot of time working in sales. It wasn't just food. It's actually mostly sales in the hotel industry that you did for a number of years, right?
Yeah. I mean, in total, I have a little over 20 years. I think it's like 22 years in the industry. I was front office manager, assistant front office manager. I mean, you start off just front of the line.
You're like a bellman or something,
work your way up. So, yeah. And the one thing you learn in the hotel industry is you go from being on the line, being a front desk clerk or a bellman, and then you get into management. You find out you'll never make as much money as you did when you were a bellman. Those guys make a ton of money.
I was just going to ask you that as you mentioned it, because, I like to go to nice hotels, and there's some great, I don't know if you call them bell people, bellmen, whatever the right terminology is. Yeah. Places like Fairmont's or Hotel Georgia or whatever. And I mean, the cash that flows is significant. What they must be tipping out, right, to other people?
Oh, they do pretty well. When I was at the Bay Shore, we had two guys. These guys were the doormen. So they controlled that front parking area. So if you wanted to be in one of those spots, first of all, we were looking at what kind of vehicle did you drive? It's all an image and this, that, and the other, and then they would drop their money. So they're making money there. But our head guy owned a apartment block in the West End. I'm not talking like a tiny one of like 6 units. I think his apartment block had like 25 units. I can only imagine what that's worth now. And our other guy actually was an antique car collector. And I was like, wow. So never think that those guys are suffering.
But that's a really, really important position. Yeah. Like when it comes to the customer experience at a hotel like that, I would say that those guys are the most important person you encounter, from the moment you pull up to talking to front desk to maybe dealing with concierge. Like, those guys control the environment of the client experience. And so I get it. I think that makes a lot of sense.
They do. And it's first impression.
Yeah.
And you want guys with charisma and they gift a gab. They just, everything. It's your first impression. And I would say, they're integral for sure, because that can set the experience well, or it can just start it off where, we're digging ourselves out of a hole.
Yeah. 2008, 2009, hotel industry, world goes through a significant correction. I assume that has a significant impact on hotel industry, and that marked the beginning of the end in your hotel experience and actually your entry into real estate. So how did that, I don't know, we don't have to, you can talk about whatever you want, but I'm curious to see how this experience has impacted your real estate venture.
Yeah. I mean, at that time, that's when, when I got out of the industry. And I'm an open book kind of guy, straightforward. I got sacked.
Yeah.
Like I got fired. And at that time I was at the Sheridan Wall Center. We always knew every year that someone's numbers and quotas, we're not used to quotas. We give ourselves our own quotas, really. But your numbers as to how many dollars in meetings you were going to do, guest rooms, etc., would be put on the table. And I mean, we're on a downturn. And it was quite evident that this year, and everyone always said, it'll never be Mark. No one will
Too
ever
nice
set
of a
Mark
guy.
up. Yeah, like why would you want to get rid of me? It was very evident, and sure enough, I mean, I just wasn't able to attain these numbers. I mean, companies weren't traveling anymore.
Sure.
Like they were under scrutiny as to why they were spending money this way and that. I mean, it was kind of kooky. And if I didn't have one of the big pharma companies or one of the big banks doing either their national sales conference with us or their Western conference with us, I was hooped.
Yeah.
Because I needed one of those, it was going to be $100,000 meeting, et cetera. It was going to be like a $2-3 million meeting. And they do dump money like crazy. So I was gone. And I just made this choice that, you know what? I'm not going to let anyone else control my work destiny anymore. I'm going to work for myself. And I'd had a bunch of people tell me before, you should go into real estate. You should go into real estate. You're totally born for it. And I'm like, what do I know about real estate? And I mean, realistically, what did I know? And I went, you know what? I'm going to. So did the real estate course. A couple of school buddies of mine had started a smaller company in Vancouver, signed on with them. And then I was like, now what?
And not to mention, you're entering, you got licensed in 2009, right?
Yeah, it would have been in 10 by the time I licensed.
Okay, so we had kind of come through, like the 9 was a really rough year in real estate. 10 started to improve a bit, but it was still like 9, 10, 11, 12. Those were tough years in real estate.
Yeah, and you know what? Probably something that was quite lucky for me because I was naive to that. Like I had no clue.
I agree. Yeah.
Like that was my benchmark. And literally, I sat there and I'm like, okay, well, a few people, I'm a realtor. Why is the phone not ringing?
Mm-hmm.
This company they were really working the online SEO.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what came with it. They did say you will get leads. And how it was purely people requesting showings. So your first question was, are you working with a realtor? Half of them were, half of them weren't. And then you got in front of people and you sold yourself.
Right.
So it was your job there. And my first client, I always look back to this, and I think a lot of realtors have a similar story to this, that client doesn't know that they were their first client.
I do that totally.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, how am I going to get around? Like, I'm in my head, he's going to ask me, how long have you been a realtor?
Yeah.
He was from Alberta. So I went, okay, what do you know? I know the city. I sell the city with other hotels in the conference center to sell Vancouver as a destination. I've lived here for a long time. So that's what I spoke to. I said, he wanted an investment property. So I showed him communities. I said, when you arrive, we're going to spend our first day just driving around and I'm going to explain the communities to you. And I'm going to tell you why I think these are good ones for you to buy it. So it taught me to that transition it's like, figure out what you know. Like use what you actually know and express that. And it was useful. And I still to this day do that on relocations. I tell people, look, this is my background. I've lived here for over 45 years of my life. And I've lived anywhere from Chilliwack to North Vancouver down to Swassen. I said, if there's a community I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know it. But I can give you ideas if you haven't figured out where you want to be in the Lower Mainland. And some people think I'm nuts for taking the time to do that. But, a lot of realtors go, okay, well, I have to service my clients. We don't have a clue what service is in comparison. So, it's helped me do that aspect of things. And And I do always put my clients before myself. And not that everyone doesn't do that.
What does that mean? You put your clients before yourself?
I don't think about my transaction. I think about myself as, what am I wanting as an experience? Like, this person is now, I'm trusting this person. So you are like on a stay with me. So when we're looking, they're in my hands. Like, I'm the room, I'm the restaurant, I'm everything. So I want to make sure that they walk out there and go, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Or I didn't feel pressured, but I got great information and we still got it done quickly. It's that, and it's a little bit of mindset. That's how I look at it. And I really try not to think about the transaction. I think about the experience, and that's what the hotel and hospitality industry is about. If you're going to do a big meeting in a city, you think about the experience before anything.
Mm-hmm. And by focusing on the experience, you're trusting that, however you want to phrase it, but the end result is going to be what everybody desires, and that, the client has purchased whatever they're trying to purchase or do, and you're generating revenue. I mean, nobody is doing this for free. The hotel's not doing something for free, and you're not driving around endlessly through neighborhoods for free. I mean, you got to make a living. But I think what I hear you saying is that focus on the experience of the client, and the rest will usually take care of itself.
Yeah, and when I was with Starwood Hotels, and a lot of people go Starwood, people that travel regularly know what the brand and umbrella.
Oh yeah,
is.
I know Starwood.
Yeah.
Yep.
But although Starwood's recently been bought by Marriott International, so they're, I think, the largest now. But when Starwood was launching some new brands, we went through this brand understanding training. And that's when I bring that with me as well, because it's not, I don't focus on what I do. It's focusing on who I am to be able to do what I do. And we're all different. Like, I can't be you.
Yeah.
I can't be Ray. I mean, there's people in the office that everyone's different. But I think the people that are most successful, I've noticed, are doing what they do well.
Yeah.
And they are who they are.
Yeah, well said. Yeah.
So,
totally agree.
So I think that's where my transition and my help from that industry has kind of helped me focus on the experience, which is who you are rather than what you are.
Very good. You had made a comment. I think you made a comment to me, or maybe it was in our prep leading up to this. What was it? You alluded to it already. Mindset. So is that all part of your, like, is that what you mean by having the right mindset in your business, or is mindset bigger than just that?
Well, that's a beginning of it. I mean, a lot of people know I do a fair bit of cold calling on online leads. And
so you never dropped that. Like, you did that from starting in 2009, and you've continued that all the way through till now.
Well, no, actually, I don't think I did that very well early on in my career. I don't think I did it well enough. I did it. I mean, you have to do that in the hotel, like in hotel sales. I did 10 years of that. I mean, for us, it's like calling someone. In that one, it's pretty much hotels. It's a little bit of the difficulty is like, who's actually the person that's booking these meetings. So you could say, I want to speak to someone at GlaxoSmithKline, but man, half your time is spent discovering who the right contact is.
Trying to get to the actual decision maker.
Yeah. Luckily, also, when you move from one property to another, I mean, we have databases. Like, we think we've got great CRMs. We have like only a tip of the iceberg compared to what hotel properties have. That's a whole different conversation. But I mean, I think, I mentioned at one time, I almost left the business. And I don't know how, and this ties into mindset as well a little bit. Things just weren't going right. I mean, I literally had a sale that fell apart. This is how unlucky certain things were going. It was just all going sideways and wrong. I had someone actually pass away after they had already gone firm on a deal. And I'm like, I can't even get hold of this person.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, what's going on? And finally, the daughter called me and said, Mark, I'm really sorry. This is why we haven't been returning calls. And I was like, gutted. Like, I was like,
Mm,
okay, well, what are we going to do with this? And she's like, I'd prefer not to go ahead. And luckily, we managed to get her out of it. But, people had sympathy, in that. But,
well, how do you have a deceased person buy a house?
well, no, they'd bought it, gone firm. And then when we were getting ready to actually complete,
Right. So
they
it's a
passed out in between.
right. So it's firm and binding, and you
Yeah.
have a deposit down. But are you telling me that the this person's
We
death,
saw the place.
but
Yeah.
doesn't that
And then,
automatically remove them from having to buy? Like, you can't actually force a
yeah.
deceased person
Yeah.
to
And
buy, can you?
no, and that's ultimately what
Yeah.
had happened. But, some people were trying to push it that, well,
Sure.
the estate now has to buy it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, no.
Pound sand.
Anyway, but like I say, that was the kind of luck I was having. And
Wow.
I called, someone said to me, just talk to Ray. And I'm a horrible person in the fact that sometimes I think I can do everything. So I won't reach out. And I have slowly over time learned that, you know what? Talk to people. People are helpful. And I called Ray and I said, Ray, just, I'm thinking about getting out of this. Like, it's just all going wrong.
Hmm.
And Ray said, no. He says, you're too good for that. He gave me a couple of ideas of some things that I could do. And I still kind of said to my wife, I went, you know what? Like, I've just become excuse the word, but a crap realtor overnight. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what's going wrong. Lost all the confidence. And she slapped me across the head and said, snap out of this. Like, that's not you. So I ended up getting involved with Chris Lucas.
Hmm.
And, he put this thing in front of me. He says, I got this massive database and people need to call it. And here's what we agreed upon on cut sharing and that. I liked it because I still kept my own personal deal stuff. And I taught myself how to get into that. Like, I'm fine on the phone, and in person, people usually find me fairly charismatic. That's what people said about me getting into the hotel industry. Like, you're perfect. Like, people like you. And I'm like, yeah, I guess they do. Why not? Doing it on the phone's a bit different. But, and every once in a while, I liked the idea of actually almost getting like into a call center. And there were about 4 or 5 of us that would be calling for 2.5 hours on a Monday morning, and then
Yeah.
a Thursday morning we do it. Listening to other people, I was like, that was a good thing to say. And slowly over time, I found some things that I would say. And it was interesting because I was like, here's an opportunity in front of me. Meanwhile, I heard a couple other people going, I only get the crappiest leads, and this is all BS. And, half of the calls are just terrible. And I'm like, I'm sitting here going, no, I'm having good conversations here. Like, dig in. And it's getting the mindset of, for me, and this is where I talk about it. You can look at it, and some people would focus on, I don't want to give away anything. And I'm like, I looked at someone and said, do you have better leads? Do you have people to call? Like, you can certainly randomly, pick a list of phone numbers and start dialing it, but you don't know if they're actually interested in real estate. At least these people are in real estate.
Sure.
And they're like, yeah, but they're crap. And I'm like, no, it's an opportunity. And that's kind of the mindset that I look at. And I go, you can focus on what is the bad part, or you can focus on where you want to go with it. And I do think that changes how you sound on the phone.
Absolutely.
It changes your conversation.
Yeah.
I get the people, like, the common one. Everyone complains about the guy or lady that's on the phone and says, all I want you to do is send me the leads. I have a bunch of people. Whoever sends me the right listing is who I'll work with.
Right.
Well, first of all, any realtor that will work with that person is probably not focusing on the right person. But I take that conversation a step further. It's a challenge. And I said say to people, and a lot of people, I hear my other colleagues, they're like, okay, I'm hanging up on that one. I always leave that person with one comment. I go, can I give you a tip in online real estate research? And the guy, sometimes they go, no, I haven't got time for you.
Sure.
That's fine. Too bad for them. But I find 8 out of 10 times they go, Sure. I go, the next time you're signing up for real estate leads, because I said, it sounds like you're irritated with people calling you.
Because these people have signed up. That's how they're on the list to begin with, right? They've entered their information
they've signed
somewhere.
up. Yeah, they've already entered their information in,
Mm-hmm.
so we're dialing them. And part of usually that conversation also comes into, I get calls from everyone, so I've got lots of you working, and I'll say, the next time you're going to enter your information, don't. And he goes, but I want to look at it. I go, but you've already got access to something that will show it to you.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh. And all of a sudden, because I actually gave them a piece of value, they go, you mean you're going to help me not get these irritating calls? And I'll even joke with people. I go,
yeah,
I know you're not really looking forward to hearing from me, but
yeah.
And I'll go in from there. The other thing, I'll tell people straight up, like, be honest with people. And again, it's a mindset. I'm gonna take time. It's only 2 more minutes of my time to explain to them. If you show some loyalty to your realtor, you'll get all loyalty back. And he says, but I just want that good deal. And I go, let me give you an example. I said, I've got 5 clients that are working with me, not with anyone else. So just working with me. I've got a great listing. Am I going to give it to you, or am I going to work with the client that's working with me loyalty-wise?
Totally.
And that's the mindset. Like, don't give up. Think of the positive, and usually you can get something from it. If they hang up, that's fine. Or if they say they don't want your business.
It's a numbers game too, right? Like, you've got your data where you go, well, if you make 100 calls, you're going to turn what, 4 into a possible transaction?
Yeah, I'd say that.
So you also have to have, I think where some people are unable to do what you're talking about is that they don't have the stomach or the stamina to just get through the numbers. Because yes, like if somebody's really good at it, they can have a 5 or 6% conversion rate, and if somebody sucks at it, they can have a 1% conversion rate. But whether you suck or you're good, 95% of the time, you're still ending the phone call with a miss, right? And that is what's, I think, really hard for many, many people, is that, that just takes guts and determination to get through that. And it's hard.
Yeah. And that's where your mindset, if you don't have the mindset that there is something at the other end of it, you won't be able to convince yourself to do that hard work. I used to mountain bike a fair bit. At one point, I had this great idea that I was going to go pro, but I quickly found out that going from lower ranks right up to what they call intermediate was quite easy. It was a big jump, but the effort just meant you needed some skill. You needed to be out riding every once in a while. To get that next step, it took 10 times the energy to just make that one little step. So I realized that it just wasn't in me, but I got to go out and ride with a lot of other people. And this is back in the mid-90s, and mountain biking was just sort of kicking off. And there was a guy, a BC local guy named Bruce Spicer, and we got to go ride with him. He raced for Kona. And I always thought it was cool. We'd run into him if we were up in Mount Seymour or Cypress riding. And this one time, we were doing this trail, and I'm going down this section and then hitting this uphill. And if you didn't clean it, you were done. So you were always trying to clean the section so you weren't out of the pedals. And there's this one darn rock that I always hit. And I was like, this one time he's with us, and I got cursing and swearing, going, I can hit that rock. God damn it, blah, blah, blah. And he looked at me, he goes, Mark, what are you looking at when you're going through there? I go, I'm making sure I miss that rock. And he says, what do you do? I go, I don't know. I hit it every time. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Like, I can see where I'm going. He goes, you're not seeing where you're going. He says, you're focused on the rock. Look at where you want to go. And that's another thing that I like. I sit there and I always say that to myself. Don't look at the obstacle. Look at the path. And it's that's mindset to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's always a way around things. But if you don't look at it, you won't see it, or it'll take you too long to see it, one or the other.
That's good.
Yeah.
A lot of people won't know who George Best is, but he's my understanding, he's a very famous Irish footballer / soccer player, correct?
Yeah, I mean, most people that know me fairly closely know that I mean, I played soccer or football all my life. I didn't put on a pair of skates till I was, I think, something like 13, just because my parents had me in rugby, soccer. That was what my dad played as well. So
So so George was your idol growing up, kind of thing, or
yeah,
he was your Wayne Gretzky?
yeah, exactly. And I mean, he's got a bit of a sad life there. And this guy he was brilliant. I mean, someone asked Pelé what it was like to be the best player in the world, and his quote was, "I don't know. Go ask George Best."
Hmm.
But he derailed himself. For him, it ended up being alcoholism, and it did it. It killed him, and it shortened his career, and he turned himself into a complete mess. There's interviews where they said, "What do you think's going on here? Like, why are you quitting?" He quit at like 26, and then got back into it. He came to North America and played. But I always look at that as well, and kind of as much as I look at going, here's the skill, but he couldn't keep his focus, his mindset. And I mean, we know alcoholism is a different beast.
Mm-hmm.
Substance abuse is, but it's interesting in that he got in his own way. And that again is my mindset. And that was that moment, going right back to where we started with it, where I almost quit. I was getting in my own way. I was entirely getting in my own way. And in honesty, I actually wasn't even being good to myself at that time either. So, I'm not saying I was going down that path in any way, but it's something that I always try to take something from either a good experience or a bad experience, or reading about something. I always try to take something from that and understand why. I think the why really helps us sometimes.
Do you enjoy reading?
I don't do enough of it, but I do enjoy it when I get down to it.
Have you gotten into audio? Like, have you ever switched into audiobooks? Is the challenge actually like just physically reading, or what prevents you from reading enough or more?
Yeah, probably time. And I haven't switched to audiobooks, and it is something that I keep saying I'm going to do. And I kind of think, I hear of other people in the car. That's when they do it. And I mean, we drive it for a bit. So I definitely need to tap into that more.
So reading, I use reading as I mean, I love to take in information, but it's also just something that relaxes me before bed. Whether I do sometimes I read, sometimes I do audio, but I find that it's just a great way to clear my head and to turn my brain off from the anxieties of the day, so that I can actually fall asleep. That's actually probably why I do it. It's not always because I want to take the information in, but I need to calm my brain down in order to fall asleep.
Yeah, I just said to someone the other day, actually, I want to, and I said to my wife, I said, I wouldn't mind going and taking a course in meditating.
Oh yeah.
And I always thought that could be quite good, because I mean, stresses of life, whether things in work life or even home life, and this past year, I mean, I think that's something we talk about so much. And I mean, I just did my parent-teacher interviews with my kids' teachers, and man, some of them are just talking about the anxiety. The counselors were the ones that I found most interesting, because they said they're just coming up with all sorts of knowledge and how it's affected kids. So,
Oh yeah.
and we never went through that in that way, and we sometimes forget that. But again, that's another subject. But definitely, I think reading can be the information, and like you say, it can also be a great way to just kind of take yourself out of the now time. I like my downtime, and when I do downtime, I mistakenly sometimes call it dumb time, but I need to do more with my dumb time.
Mm-hmm. What's next for you? I know you've been working on something with Mae Wong Smith. You guys, I don't know if you work together now, or you're just working together, but I'm asking because I think there's a lot of people that have been thinking about going down that road of like forming some type of quasi partnership in order to have support in this business. So what are you working on?
Yeah, so May and I have known each other, I guess, now for about 2.5 years. Both of us, we kind of learned, we were just talking to each other a bit. What she noticed and what I noticed was we kind of had the same work ethic. And that was one thing. But then we kind of looked at our results. And again, this was more with the online stuff. And I was like, okay, here's someone that's paralyzed, paralleling my results, and she's vice versa. Similar mindset to things or approach to things, our core values of how we think real estate should be done and how we should deal with our clients were similar. But the interesting thing is both of us have tried to do this before. And
tried to do some type of a partnership?
Yeah, partnership, whether it's a team partnership, business partnership. And both of us kind of got, I hate to say the word burned. I don't think burned is the right thing, but we found out very quickly that we just weren't the right people for each other. And the other thing is that on the surface, we've got our outer shell, but I think if you're going to get into business with someone, you need to know their inside. And so we've taken actually 14 months of getting to know each other, getting ourselves to the step of this. And since January, we've unofficially been working together in the aspect of we actually share our business. It's like whatever I earn, maybe it's her that, or we do some business together. We co-list in that.
Yeah.
And a couple of things that we've liked about this is some people always complain about the constant paycheck. If you're not a person that's doing 40 odd deals a year, you don't feel like you've got
it can be sporadic
paycheck every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So, and not everyone's the best at saving. So that has helped us that way, because it's all of a sudden you're getting something. It's like, oh yeah, didn't even know.
Right, a smaller piece more often.
Yeah, more often. So that's good. But where the reason we looked at each other is like, well, how could we benefit each other? The Lower Mainland is probably, and Fraser Valley, is probably one of the most multicultural communities in North America. I mean, I'm sure there's others, haven't been everywhere in the world, but the diversity here is very wide.
Mm-hmm.
So we liked our cultural differences, and May speaks, I don't like saying Chinese because she speaks, I believe it's Mandarin.
Is it Cantonese or Mandarin? Or both?
I think she speaks Mandarin.
Yeah, okay.
She understands Cantonese, but she speaks Mandarin.
Got it.
Me, on the other hand, being a longtime resident of the Lower Mainland, it's a quality that I can deliver in. And not to say that being Caucasian European background isn't a background as well. That's true. It is, right? So,
well, you're from England, so you speak sewer English.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I do. I remember coming back the last time, my parents pretty much said that to me. So they said, "What happened to your proper English?" Yeah,
the Queen's English is gone. You speak slang.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're developing, and right now we're working on our brand logo right now. We had one, we kind of trashed it. We are thinking of a different one, so we got some other people working on some stuff. So we're hoping to have that launched and ready to go in January. But that's after working together all year.
Will you do a team? Like, will you identify as a team? Or what are your thoughts? Or are you just going to work together and not necessarily identify as a team? Or how will you do that?
Well, I think on the surface, I mean, we dove into the board on the questions on that, because we kind of saw a benefit of, as everyone calls referral partners. With this last kind of boom, we had unrepresented people coming into our listings, and sometimes they needed someone to work with.
Yeah, and if you're a team, you're kind of screwed, because now you
can't do that. So as long as we keep two separate databases and have separate contact information on our joint websites and stuff, then you can do that business partnership. And it can still have a branding logo that's shared. It's just two realtors working. Oh,
that's an interesting. You can have a shared logo, but as long as you're okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can, and that's it. That was one of the key things for us. Was we made sure we asked all the questions at the board. How do we do this so we don't get ourselves into trouble? We're not 100% sure we'll continue that. We're going to start that way. We may end up going into the team entity.
Sure.
We've had some success in referring over someone that comes in unrepresented.
Mm-hmm.
What our worry is that at some point, could it possibly end up being, frowned upon by others, and then all of a sudden you get hauled into the board. So we may go team for safety, but for right now, we're going that way.
How much of this is driven by the fact that, like, I have a lot of people, I mean, within the industry, but within our brokerage as well, just say things like, I want to be with people because I want support, and I don't want to always be on 24/7. Is that the driving mechanism behind the partnership? Is it that you guys are going to like support each other with showings and give each other days off? Or what's the main piece behind the partnership? I mean, you mentioned the consistent paycheck, which I think makes a lot of sense. But
Yeah,
what about the support piece and getting some time off?
we absolutely discussed that because you know what, when you're away, we're usually kind of going, okay, who am I going to trust my business with? In this case, I'm able to trust my business with my business partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was something we discussed heavily on that. And that was our drive for both of us in the idea of getting into a business partnership and having a partnership in the industry. That way we have our own coverage. We had I think you were asking me if there's ever a transaction that came together. Well, I get a call from a client at, I think it was like 10 to 7. And they go, Mark, oh, no, I know what it was. Sorry. Realtor calls me and goes, offers were supposed to be on Sunday. Realtor sends me a touch base going, are you putting in an offer this evening? So I call him. I go, what's this? I said, offers are on Sunday. We've got a showing tomorrow night. And he's like, yeah, well, we received an offer, as we all hear, a bully offer comes in. So long and short, I call my clients and go, hey, this has happened. I'm actually sitting there thinking to myself, I hope they don't want to go see this because I'm in Burnaby and this place is in Maple Ridge.
Yeah.
So we needed to get an offer in by 8. So what I did was I went, zipped out there, showed them the home. May was writing the contract.
Like as you were doing that?
For me. Yeah. And then, of course, we automatically doored them because then now May's also representing them. And took care of that aspect and said, now you've got 2 realtors working for you on this one. They'd already been out on some showings with May because I wasn't available one time.
Sure.
So they'd already been introduced to her. And basically in 3/4 of an hour to an hour, we had the contract written, all forms signed, price done, and shown. I could not have done that on my own.
Yeah, no, it's physically impossible. Yeah.
So that was nice. I mean, the other option is I could be the realtor and I could have an assistant. We certainly, that's sort of part of our plan and putting a 5-year plan together. And again, I mean, the key to this is we took our time. We didn't dive in because we've both done that before and just went, we really didn't think this through. So, I mean, the one piece of advice I'd say to people, do it slowly, work together, kind of figure out that, get to know each other business-wise and personally, and then make that final decision.
Yeah, you don't have to formalize anything so quick. I think sometimes I agree, like people jump in and try to like make things so official so quickly, but what you guys have done by taking your time allows you to possibly deal with any rubs or hiccups before you've spent significant money on creating a brand or anything like that.
Absolutely. Like made sure we went out, did a couple of showings with some clients together to see what we were both like in that entity. We did a couple of listing presentations. We completely bombed one together. We almost had our first fight over that. But then we regrouped the next morning and go, okay, where did this go wrong? What didn't you like about what I did? What didn't I like about what your approach was, or what didn't mesh? And then we suddenly realized that we were actually, neither of us were trying to overpower each other. I started to understand some things that I went, I've never thought of it that way. That was brilliant. I walked myself into a rabbit hole there without even knowing. And in this case, it was a cultural thing.
Sure.
And vice versa. I explained something and I said, this is what's going to happen with this client down the road. And it came back and sure enough, it did. And she got some value out of it. And that was a big building experience. So we actually practiced it or went and pretended we were doing it for a bit and then went, can we survive this? And we both realized that we were actually really good support for each other.
That's good.
So that is a bit. and for me, I also do sometimes miss that camaraderie. Like, I mean, in the hotel business, I always, if I wasn't running a sales team or I was a part of a sales team of anywhere from 5 to 12.
That's what you were doing in the hotel business, 5 to 12
Yeah,
people. Got it.
yeah,
Yeah, so you were never a lone ranger, and real estate can be a very lonely game.
yeah. It can be.
Yeah.
And I kind of, I always thought that would be fun and cool. And you know what? I like that aspect that I can work on my own as well. I'm quite comfortable in my own skin, but it sometimes, especially the day that I get up and I go, man, I haven't really got a lot on the plate today. What should I do? Okay, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. And then May will call me up and go, hey, you know what? I'm going to be in the office this afternoon. Come on. And I go, yeah. And I'm like, you know what? It picked me up that. And
Sure.
she said the same. There's certain days where all of a sudden she's like, and she was so glad at the end that we went in. And I think we all battle with that, running our own business.
Mm-hmm.
We're our own bosses. We can take time off when we want, or we can slack when we want. We're only accountable to ourselves.
You're not only relying on your energy, you're getting to feed off the energy of someone else as well, which, as you just said, some days you need that.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between a productive day and a crappy day.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, not one, that's the other thing we like about each other is not one of us is the motivator, and both of us are quite happy to call the other one out. And we also don't get too sensitive. We've gone through our sensitive period in our pretend period where it's like, May hurt my feelings today. And then, or May would call me back and go, she'd say something. And I go, what are you talking about here? And she goes, well, I was wondering if there was a little message there. And I'm like, there's no message. So we've actually learned each other's personalities before we signed on the dotted line. And I think that is important. And you have to find out if your personalities mesh.
That's good. Are you going to sell a house today or this week? What's up for the rest of the day?
Today, I actually have a potential offer for a client on a Whistler property. I don't usually work out of my area, but this guy is someone that just insists on working with me. I've helped his father. I've helped him. We actually play soccer together, and he trusts me. So Whistler, I don't mind.
Is it going to be like competing situation or not?
No, this one isn't, surprisingly enough.
Oh, that's nice.
Hopefully we can get something put in and it can make sense. We've just got a couple of questions to look at on that. And then I have a new listing coming on either early next week or the week after that I've got some work to do on as well. And that was some people that we've already sold their home, managed to not sold their home. We've got them into an acreage after looking at properties with them for over a year and a half. We finally found the right one, got the deal done. I think they got a good deal. Now they've got to sell. That was one of their roadblocks on that, where it was, and that's kind of, again, the can do. They were like, well, the typical question is, can we get our home sold in time? And in fairness, their home is in a great location. And their home is quite nice. Their home has been lived in for 20 years, and it's a bit cluttered. So I've delivered to them quite the honesty and said, hey, this is what we're dealing with. Here's the positives. Here's the nons. I can tell you, we will get it sold. You're in an area that's quite in high demand, but it's not something I can sit here and say to you, I promise. So we actually managed to get all the financing done through my mortgage broker. They were working with theirs, and with the mortgage broker I recommended, we were able to get everything all done so they could complete and sell a little bit later. They didn't have, I removed the pressure of having to have
sale
done before.
Yeah.
So that was a good one. So we're working on that listing, but don't think I'm going to have one sold today unless with the Whistler one.
Well, unless you get the Whistler one. Well, yeah. I am sincerely appreciative of your time. I love the way your brain works, and I'm thankful that you were generous enough to share some of your thoughts and philosophies with us. I'm a big fan. I think you guys are going to do awesome things together, you and May.
Yeah, I'm really hoping so. And I mean, I'm just going to leave you one last thing, because some people know I love to talk.
Go ahead.
But I think one of the most important things is to be yourself. And we kind of started with a hospitality story. I'll end it with one. So when I was the director of sales and marketing at the Hilton Vancouver Airport, I was fairly young on at that time, and I got this position. I mean, it was one I wanted, and I was a dark horse for it, and I managed to get the job. Anyway, this hotel was quite special. In a lot of cases, in hotels, we're always fighting with making sure your staff are up and doing the right thing. And it was kind of like you bring in a good apple and the bad apples turn the good apple into a bad one. Total opposite in this hotel. Our customer service scores were exceptionally high. And one year we were always competing, believe it or not, with the Waldorf Astoria for either being in number two, and they would always beat us out. The Waldorf Astoria had won it for, I'd only been with the hotel for 2 years at this time, but for 5 years in a row, they always had the highest customer satisfaction rating. And we're like, we're just a little nice airport hotel.
Sure.
All suites, not really nice property.
Yeah.
But, and the Waldorf Astoria, what is it? It's 5-star luxury. You always would think that. But what does it come down to? I mean, did the people leave happy? It's the experience. So we finished number one. And with that came a huge celebration party at the hotel. And the CEO of Hilton North America was coming to the property to give us this award and everything. My general manager would speak, then I had to speak afterwards. And my general manager put this speech in front of me. And I went, what's this?
Like he wrote it.
Yeah, she actually.
She,
and,
pardon me.
Yeah,
she.
It's okay. And great lady. I loved her dearly. She was a great general manager, but man, she was accounting background, complete controller. That's why we call controllers controllers. They need to control everything. Yeah. And I said to her, I said, well, can I? She says, no, this is the way you're going to speak. And she gets up, and I'm sitting here trying to remember this thing the whole time. I don't really like public speaking as it is, getting myself calmed down and everything. Anyway, she ends, she introduces me. I go up, and I'm in front of all our staff. I get lost in this thing. I blunder. It was this moment where I just felt like where they say, you just feel naked. I felt absolutely like inside I could feel me just getting more embarrassed, this, that, and the other. And I finally just kind of turned it over and went, I apologize for that. I said, I just blundered this. So I went to a story and just said, this is why I think we won this.
So you mid speech, you crumpled it up, like metaphorically, and then just went to your own words.
Yeah.
I love that.
And
that's good.
And it still wasn't perfect, but
it was you.
But it ended up being me. And you know what? That was a big lesson for me about that whole thing. Be you. And in sales, I have debates with people on this. Some people are real script people. And I always say, read the script. The script's important. The script is in the message. The message is perfect. And it needs to be said. You can be systematic, but make sure it's you.
Yeah, because people pick up on that crap so quickly. If you're just repeating what someone else does and it's not your own, it's not your personality, then it's so easy to hear that.
Yeah.
When you're just copying.
Absolutely. So I think for me that is the most important thing, because I think I've won listings based on that, where people have kind of asked me a question and it's like, oh, they start asking detailed statistics and that. I mean, I usually tell people, I'll give you my statistics. I said, but I can manipulate these to be anything. This is what and that's just how I'm free flowing and talking that way. I certainly practice routine. If you're going to do that, you do need some routine so you know what you're talking to, but just understand what you're talking about and be you. And my message and your message may be the same, but it'll be told totally in a different way. And we're both going to win business because we did work on being us.
The word of the day with Mark Sagar is authenticity.
You bet.
Be you. Thanks, Mark. That was awesome, dude. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. We will connect again, and I wish you all the best in Whistler. Go get that place done.
Yeah. hoping so. And hey, thanks for those tickets.
Yeah. Enjoy the. Oh yeah. That's right. You're going to the Canucks game on Saturday.
Yeah,
Connor. You're gonna see.
He's going to undress us.
You're gonna see Connor play. Yeah, that guy. He's world class. That guy's amazing.
I've seen him a couple of times live now, and yeah, he's just different.
Yeah,
way different level.
I've seen McDavid, Ovechkin, and Crosby, and they're all amazing, but no one moves like McDavid. McDavid can skate like I've never seen anyone else skate. He reminds me of the same thing Bure was back in the 90s. It was different, but he moves on the ice. Nobody can keep up with him.
That type of experience, it's funny you mentioned Bure. I was lucky. My boss at the time at the Georgian Court said to me, she said, "Oh, you want to go to the hockey game tonight, Mark?" And I went, "Sure." She goes, "Okay, meet me there, blah, blah, blah." Mm-hmm. We go to the game. And Bure had been signed. It was against Winnipeg. And he wasn't supposed to play. Right before the game, they announced that Bure was going to be playing. Mm. And I don't know, anyone that was there or anyone that watched that game remembers. He did not score. He did not get a point. But he had us out of our seat. Oh, yeah. Probably 5 times.
Yeah.
And he went from behind our net, picking up a puck. Our defenseman just kept leaving the puck there for him. He'd skate around. And I don't think anyone in Vancouver had ever seen anyone skating on the back of the way he used to like fall back on the back of his heel skate and then tip forward. And then I don't know what the hell he was doing, but boom, he was gone. It was like, holy Dinah, what have we signed?
I saw Bure play in 94. So the year they went on the cup run, I went to a game, I believe it was against the LA Kings. Bure had, I think he had 2 goals and an assist or something like that. He was electric all night long. And I don't know how this happened, but I got invited by a friend of mine. He had won some type of a contest. And me and him and his parents obviously got to go down into the dressing room after the game. And this is obviously a totally different world. I don't think they let people into the dressing rooms anymore. So I got everybody's, like I got, everybody from Russ Court. I think Russ and Jeff Courtnall were on the team at the time, or maybe it was just Jeff. Yeah. Maybe they traded for Russ later in the season. I got Sergio Momesso, Jurke Lume, Trevor Linden, like whatever. And then I got Bure's autograph on his rookie card, which I had brought with me. So I have a Pavel Bure autograph rookie card that I have in a plastic case at my house that I will always have an amazing memory around.
Sweet, and possibly a retirement plan.
Well, I don't know if it's that. I mean, that was in the era of the oversaturated collecting cards, right? Like he was I have his Upper Deck rookie card, and there was a billion of them in circulation. Who knows? I mean, it's probably worth a few bucks now. And
not all of them are signed.
But anyways, I've never seen Connor McDavid. Reminds me of, like, Bure used to just move around people like they were pylons, and McDavid does the same thing. And you're going to get to see him on Saturday night. Yeah, it's going to be cool. Anytime you get to see a star like that, it's great. I went over to London to go see my beloved Man U play Barcelona in the Champions League final. Even though we lost, the whole thing was, I was like, it's an expensive trip just for a game. Yeah. And I was like, my buddy was like, you can't give up. You cannot not go. He says, it's the new Wembley. Go. and all of a sudden, next thing you know, I'm like on the computer buying my ticket, my flights, and off I'm going. And then my wife goes, well, you're not going without me. And I'm like, crap. Okay. Got to buy her tickets too now. And I was like, God, but it was the best experience ever. Even though they lost, I got to see one of the best teams in the world. And watching that guy operate on a field, I was like, wow. It's amazing. Now I understand why he's the best. Yeah. Cool. Okay. All right. Nice chatting, man. Have fun at Whistler, dude. See ya. Will do. Yep. Oh, I'll send you a new headshot too, because my headshot's a real old one. For your, I know when you do your posting. I thought we'd stick a picture of your butt up or something like that. We can't do that. Yeah, you could do that. Put some food up. Send some food. We don't want to see your face. Send something you've cooked. Let's do that. Oh, I'll tell you what. You know what? Pratik will relate to that. If you want, I'll send you this photo of. We made this. He came over for beers one time. We've been trying to do it for like 4 or 5 months. Finally, I said, "You're coming over," and you know what? It ties the story.
I cooked the best burger that night. That's all I made. I made
Oh,
a piri-piri
perfect.
Portuguese burger, and it was delicious.
I
That's
love
what
it.
I'm going to send you. buddy.
New headshot and a picture of a burger. I love it.
Okay,
Okay.
done.
See you, man. Take
All right.
care.
Ciao.
Bye.